On my 20th birthday, I hosted a dinner at the local coffee shop. Amidst the cheerful commotion of my friends, I blew out the candles on my cake. Every face around me beamed with warmth, even Gilbert Chadwick, known for his usual stoic demeanor, had a hint of a smile in his eyes. My best friend, Meredith Charlton, chimed in, "Time for presents, Trisha. You know I'm broke, so don't judge my humble gift." I playfully punched her arm and happily accepted the planner she gave me. The others followed suit. I had asked them not to splurge, so the most expensive gift was just a lipstick. With everyone else done, all eyes turned to Gilbert. As my boyfriend, he was the second most important person at this gathering. His lips still curved in that subtle smile from earlier as he handed me a bag. Inside was a rough paper box. My expectations instantly plummeted, and when I opened the box, my heart sank even further. It was a small snow globe, clearly bought from the corner shop at uni. Turning it over, I saw the £3 price tag still attached to the base. It felt like a cruel joke, mocking me. "See, this is all you're worth to him." I forced a smile. Is this my birthday present? He had worked 2 summer jobs and already received his wages. He had even mentioned he was planning something special. Gilbert's brow furrowed slightly. His pale face flushed with embarrassment and anger under the scrutiny of everyone's gaze. His fingers curled into fists at his sides. He remained silent, but Bronte Jarrett stood up, timidly saying, "Trisha, Gilbert knew you liked crystal, so he picked this out specially. Didn't you say earlier that you'd appreciate any gift, regardless of its cost?" Gilbert glanced at her, his eyes showing a hint of gratitude, and his tightly pressed lips relaxed a bit. I laughed sarcastically. "He buys me a £3 snow globe, but helps you with £200 for your tuition fees. As his girlfriend, don't I even have the right to ask about that?" Bronte wrung her hands, her eyes welling up. "Trisha, I'll pay him back, I swear." Gilbert really doesn't have money. He had to use his credit card to cover my fees. So he had borrowed money to help her. I felt even more upset. My gaze sharp and angry. Don't you have parents of your own? Why does my boyfriend have to pay your tuition? Bronte's face turned pale, tears instantly streaming down her cheeks. Gilbert's frown deepened. He grabbed my wrist, his voice cold. "Trisha Lawton, apologize to Bronte. Not everyone was born with a silver spoon in their mouth like you. I'm Trisha. She's Bronte." My body tensed as I tried hard not to cry, letting out a soft, bitter laugh. Is it my fault that I was born into a good family? I rarely spoke so harshly, and Gilbert looked displeased, but his tone softened slightly. "Trisha, you have birthdays every year, but tuition is a serious matter. I promise, when I get paid for my tutoring next month, I'll get you something else." I lowered my gaze to my hand, which was turning purple from his tight grip. I forcefully pulled my hand away, looking directly into his deep eyes. "Gilbert, do you think I care about a few quid for a gift?" What I cared about was that he hadn't put me first, that his relationship with Bronte seemed overly intimate. The wealth gap between us had always been a sore spot for him. This comment struck a nerve, wounding his pride. The color drained from his face, and his eyes seemed to freeze over. "Trisha, perhaps we're not compatible after all. If you want to break up, I won't stop you." I swallowed my hurt and anger, calmly nodding. "Fine, let's break up then." Gilbert Chadwick's expression was one of shock. In the past, whenever he pulled out the breakup card, I would immediately become docile and stop acting up. My composure was actually on the verge of crumbling, so I quickly said I needed some time alone and rushed out of the pub. The air outside was gloomy and damp, much like my current state of mind. I thought about hailing a taxi, only to realize I'd left my mobile on the sofa inside. I had no cash on me either. As I hesitated whether to go back in, a voice called out behind me. "Trisha, let's talk this through." I turned to see Gilbert. The colorful neon lights danced across his face, making it difficult to discern his expression. A tiny spark of hope flickered in my heart. Has he come to win me back? Bronte Jarrett, the senior, also hurried out, descending the steps while saying, "Trisha, don't misunderstand. Gilbert and I have known each other since childhood. I just see him as an older brother." Before she could finish, she missed a step and fell, letting out a cry of pain. Gilbert turned to look at her. With tears in her eyes, she looked utterly pitiful. Gil, don't worry about me. I'm fine. Gilbert hesitated for a moment before saying to me, Trish, stay here. I'll go check on her. I watched as he jogged over, carefully helping Bronte up and rolling up her trousers to examine her knee. I couldn't help but recall when I was learning to ride a bike and accidentally crashed into a rusty railing, scraping a large patch of skin off my foot. It swelled up like a scone. It was late at night then, and the school infirmary was closed. I thought it would be fine to wait until morning, but when Gilbert heard about it, he sprinted all the way from the study hall. He managed to persuade the strict dorm manager and came straight to my room on the 5th floor. He carried me down and all the way to the school gates to catch a ride. Trish, we need to get this treated quickly. If it gets infected, you could die. I can't bear the thought of anything happening to you, he had said. He loved me then, and perhaps he still does now. But witnessing him bestow upon another the tenderness that was once exclusively mine made me physically ill. I took 2 steps back, and as I turned to leave, I clearly saw Bronte glance up at me. Not only did she fail to remind Gilbert, but she also let out an exaggerated gasp of pain. As if to accentuate my predicament, the heavens chose that moment to open up. With no umbrella, no phone, and no money, my spirits at an all-time low, I wandered aimlessly in the rain. Just then, a Mercedes G-Class glided by, its window lowering to reveal Zechariah Sheffield's amused face. He didn't need glasses, yet he wore a flashy pair of gold-rimmed spectacles. With an unlit cigarette dangling from his lips, he craned his neck and looked at me with schadenfreude. Well, if it isn't our faculty beauty, Trisha Lawton. You're soaked to the skin like a drowned rat. Where's that pretentious boyfriend of yours? In the passenger seat sat a scantily clad girl, half her chest spilling into the air. She glanced at me, her voice sticky sweet. Zach, darling, is this the dim-witted girl you used to fancy? Looks like she's been dumped. I was about to retort when Zechariah Sheffield landed a sharp slap on the back of the girl's head. His smile vanishing, replaced by icy coldness. Shut your foul mouth. Who gave you the right to talk about her? Get out, he barked. The girl was stunned. Zach, she's rejected you so many times before. You're not still pining after her, are you? Most men would have flown into a rage at this, but Zechariah's mind worked differently. He flashed a dazzling smile. Of course I am. I'll be her devoted admirer. Zechariah took off his glasses and looked at me with a grin. My goddess, where to? Your faithful admirer is at your service. I didn't want to get in his car, but Gilbert Chadwick had already turned the corner and was running towards me. I'd treat it like an Uber and pay him double the fare later. As the car passed Gilbert, Zechariah deliberately slowed down, grinning triumphantly. Gilbert, fancy seeing you here. I'd love to grab a pint with you, but I'm in a rush to drop someone off. Gilbert's face turned ashen when he saw me in the passenger seat. Zechariah had always been a thorn in his side. They were the 2 most renowned students in the computer science department. Gilbert Chadwick was the epitome of a handsome, talented, yet tragic figure orphaned at a young age. He possessed a calm demeanor and was both hardworking and disciplined. Zechariah Sheffield, on the other hand, came from a prominent family and was doted on by his parents. He was flamboyant, frivolous, and carefree. While others attended lectures, Zechariah slept. When his classmates were in the library, he was playing video games. Yet, come exam time, Zechariah would cram in the library for 2 weeks, and his grades would be on par with Gilbert's. Moreover, Zechariah had once pursued me quite openly. Gilbert thought for a while that I might fall for the bad boy, Zechariah. But I never felt drawn to the irreverent Zechariah. I had always been a pampered princess, and perhaps that's why I was more fascinated by the hardworking and self-restrained Gilbert. After we got together, to put Gilbert at ease, I cut all ties with Zechariah. I blocked his contact information and even deliberately avoided occasions where he might be present. On the way, Zechariah was chatty, but I wasn't in the mood to engage. I turned my head to look out the window. My clothes were damp, and I felt a bit cold. I shivered silently, and soon after, I felt the temperature in the car rise. Zechariah had turned on the heating. He was wearing a jacket and his forehead was beaded with sweat. Noticing me looking at him, he raised an eyebrow and said, "How about that? Am I not more considerate than Gilbert?" I wanted to slap him. When we arrived at the university, I prepared to get out, but he told me to wait. He got out himself and opened the door for me, saying, "A goddess should be treated like a goddess." "How could you open the car door yourself?" I was a bit exasperated. "Thanks, I'll transfer the fare to you via contactless payment when I get my phone." He cheerfully replied, "All right." As I turned to go upstairs, he called out to me and tossed me a box. Under the dim streetlight at the entrance of the dormitory, he smiled brightly. "Trisha, happy 20th birthday. I didn't prepare in advance, so let this be your birthday gift." Back in my dorm room, I opened the package to find a box of colorful rainbow sweets, clearly imported judging by the packaging. I popped one into my mouth, letting the sweet flavor melt on my tongue. Not bad. At least it could offset a bit of the bitterness in my heart. An hour later, my roommates returned, all trying to comfort me and tell me to cheer up. Gilbert and I had argued many times before, but apart from Meredith, none of them thought we'd actually break up. Meredith brought back my mobile. There were no messages from Gilbert on WhatsApp. I transferred £10 to Zechariah's account via contactless payment. He replied almost instantly, "Cheers, boss. Let's connect on WhatsApp. I'll be your on-call driver anytime you need." I declined. Out of habit, even though I had no morning lectures, I found myself at the coffee shop at 7:30 a.m. This was the time I used to have breakfast with Gilbert every day. Among all the people there, I spotted Gilbert immediately. As usual, he had already bought breakfast for two. Despite the cooling weather, he was still wearing a well-worn white shirt, his figure lean yet tall. His dark eyes silently watched me, waiting for me to approach and smile at him sweetly, just like every time before. I forced a small smile and walked towards him. His cold expression softened, his eyes brightening like the sky outside, painted with the glow of dawn. As I passed by him, I quickened my pace, intending to brush past like a stranger. Gilbert's smile froze on his face as he grabbed my wrist, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed hard. "Trisha, are you still angry?" I fought back the pain in my chest and spoke softly, "Gilbert, we've broken up." "You were the one who suggested it." Gilbert tightened his grip, his voice hoarse. "Trisha, after a night, you still haven't adjusted? Bronte and I are just like siblings, don't be so petty. Zechariah has ulterior motives, you should avoid contact with him." His double standards were so blatant. The reproach in his eyes felt like a plastic sheet covering my face, making it hard to breathe. I stepped back, took a deep breath, not wanting any more contact with him, and left the coffee shop without looking back. It turns out that if I just paid a little attention, since Gilbert and I weren't in the same department, we basically wouldn't run into each other. Zechariah bothered me on WhatsApp for a few days and then quieted down. This was normal too. He didn't seem like the committed type. His previous antics were just because he couldn't accept my rejection. The weekend soon arrived. Meredith's schedule had a problem, and she asked me to cover her flyer distribution job. When I arrived at the shopping center, I was surprised to see Zechariah surrounded by several girls among the part-time staff. His expression was calm, his body relaxed, occasionally nodding to the girls who were speaking enthusiastically, his attitude distant. The autumn light shone through the floor-to-ceiling windows onto him. He had a stability and composure that belied his age, completely different from the Zechariah I usually saw. I stopped in my tracks. As if sensing something, he looked in my direction and immediately broke into a delighted smile, calling out, "Goddess, what are you doing here?" Everyone turned to look at me. The peaceful scene from earlier must have been my imagination. As I approached, he snapped his fingers at the girl closest to him. "Quick, bring a cup of tea for my goddess too." Anyone who didn't know better would think he was ordering in a restaurant. The girl gave me a hostile look and walked away. Zechariah and I were assigned to the same group, responsible for handing out flyers to customers entering through Gate F. Coincidentally, he was also covering for his roommate. Zechariah was incredibly enthusiastic, even taking over some of my work. We quickly completed our task. I went to find the person in charge to hand over, but after walking just a few steps into the shopping center, I saw Gilbert and Bronte sitting in a jewelry store. The strong lighting in the store accentuated Gilbert's facial features. He took a pink crystal bracelet from the shop assistant and put it on Bronte's outstretched wrist. Bronte said something, and Gilbert, usually so cold, smiled. Even his eyebrows were tinged with tenderness. The scene was truly painful to witness, both visually and emotionally. Zachariah Sheffield saw it too, his handsome features instantly hardening. He grasped my wrist and led me into the shop across the street. "It's just a bracelet," he said. His long fingers glided slowly over the glass counter, finally pointing to a gold bracelet. "Let's buy this one. It has little bells on it. From now on, whenever the goddess jingles the bells, I'll appear by your side." The bells were indeed exquisitely crafted and beautiful. I actually bought it, paying for it myself. Previously, to protect Gilbert's pride, I never bought such things. As luck would have it, we ran into them face to face as we left the shop. Zachariah, standing beside me, smiled brightly and greeted them first. "Gilbert, what a coincidence to meet you here." Gilbert looked startled, the gentle smile on his lips freezing into an icy expression. He shot a hostile glance at Zachariah before striding up to me and demanding, "Why are you with him again?" His accusatory tone instantly ignited my anger. "I don't think I need to report who I'm with to my ex-boyfriend." "Aren't you out with your junior, too?" I retorted. Gilbert's brows furrowed as he stepped forward to grab my hand again. "Trisha, I came here today to buy you." Having been hurt by his grip several times before, my arm instinctively recoiled. The little bells on my new gold bracelet clinked together, making a soft tinkling sound. The noise caught Gilbert's attention. His gaze fell on my wrist, and his expression immediately changed. He clutched the bag in his hand tightly, veins bulging on the back of his hand. After a few seconds of silence, he gave a bitter smile. "Your new bracelet looks very nice. It suits you." I knew his pride was hurt again. Bronte Jarrett stepped forward, acting sweet and innocent. "Gilbert, let me take that," she said. Gilbert seemed lost, allowing her to take the bag from his hand. Bronte looked at me timidly, weakly explaining, "Senior, please don't be angry with Gilbert. He's been thinking about you these past few days. I've already found 2 part-time jobs. I'll pay back the tuition fees to Gilbert as soon as possible," she said with an infinitely wronged expression. "Gilbert and I just grew up together like siblings. I'm no match for you in any way, Senior." "I don't have any inappropriate intentions." Gilbert glanced at her, his tone softer than when he spoke to me. "This has nothing to do with you." Zachariah snorted and raised an eyebrow, about to speak. I grabbed him. "I'll handle my own affairs." He looked at me intently, his lips curling into a slight smile, his voice firm yet affectionate. "All right, goddess first. I'll always have your back." I took a deep breath and turned to the man whose jacket Bronte was tugging at. "Gilbert, I'll only say 2 things. The rest is for you to judge. First, this shopping center is quite far from our university. You came here specifically to buy things, and it was her suggestion, wasn't it?" Gilbert looked at Bronte hesitantly. Bronte feigned innocence. "I just heard they have a better selection here." "Liar!" I scoffed coldly. "It's because you saw Meredith's WhatsApp status early this morning. You knew I was coming here to cover her shift, and you even liked the post." I asked Meredith for a screenshot. I pulled up the image, showing it was taken just after 8 a.m. I looked up at Gilbert. What time did she suggest coming shopping? Did she mention I'd be working here? Bronte panicked, looking distressed. "I didn't read the content, I just liked it without thinking." I raised an eyebrow. "So you later unliked it without thinking too?" Bronte bit her lip hard, her eyes welling up as she looked at Gilbert. "Gil." I shifted my gaze, my voice steady. "Second, Gilbert, aren't you curious how I knew about the tuition fees?" Bronte's face paled as she stammered. "You must have asked around, Senior. You've always wanted to know everything about Gil." I laughed sarcastically and played an audio clip. Bronte's muffled voice came through. "Senior, I didn't know Gil hadn't told you about paying my tuition fees." Bronte's face turned ashen, and she blurted out, "How did you record that?" "You didn't have your phone then, I." Midway through her sentence, she realized her mistake and abruptly fell silent. I chuckled softly. "You're very cautious. You deliberately borrowed my phone earlier." But Meredith was standing not far away, with her phone on her. Have you forgotten? We're both from the law school. So with just a glance from me, Meredith started recording. Gilbert Chadwick could hardly believe it. He asked Bronte Jarrett disappointedly, I specifically told you not to say anything. Why did you? Bronte wrung her hands tightly, lifting her tear-stained face. Her almond-shaped eyes were fixed on Gilbert's face. Gil, didn't you say we're from the same world? She's not good enough for you. We're the perfect match. Gilbert glanced at me guiltily. My heart turned cold. I turned to leave, and Gilbert tried to grab me, but upon seeing my cold gaze, he slowly lowered his hand. His voice was hoarse, I'm sorry. I didn't know she had such thoughts. I cut him off. Gilbert, did you truly not notice her intentions at all? What I care about was never her coveting, but your ambiguous attitude without boundaries. Gilbert's lips turned pale. I didn't believe he hadn't noticed. He just had the mindset of enjoying the best of both worlds, so he chose to be selectively blind. I wanted to leave, but Zechariah Sheffield gently placed his hand on my shoulder, embracing me with a dazzling smile. Wait, for such an important occasion, I should make my presence felt too. After saying this, he turned his gaze to Bronte. The smile was still on his lips, but his eyes were as cold as a blade. You think Trisha is inferior to you? I have to defend my goddess here. In terms of looks, figure, and family background, she's leagues ahead of you. As for grades, Trisha got into our university's top 3 ranked law school with high scores, while you barely scraped into the literature department. Since entering university, she's won several scholarships. While you, looking for tutoring jobs, were rejected by 3 families in a row. The only thing you're better at is having low standards and thick skin. He laughed sarcastically, but you're right about one thing, you and Gilbert are from the same world. You're both experts at self-pity. You're perfect for each other. Zechariah tightened his grip on my shoulder. Trisha and I wish you two a perfect match, till death do you part. With each sentence he uttered, Bronte's face grew more unsightly. By the end, she was so humiliated that her teeth were chattering, unable to utter a single word in rebuttal. As I left the shopping center, Gilbert was tightly held back by the ceaselessly crying Bronte. The man who had once gently helped her up now had a cold expression, looking annoyed, no longer showing any trace of his former tenderness. On the way back, while waiting at a red light, Zechariah turned his head to stare at me, his tone sincere, if you want to cry, just cry. I've specially prepared a silk handkerchief for you to wipe your tears. The boutique staff assured me it won't harm your skin. He really is. I did want to cry earlier, but now I just want to punch him. He seemed to know what I was thinking and leaned his head closer with a smile. Come on, don't hold back. If you want to hit me, go ahead. I swiftly smacked the back of his head. He sucked in a sharp breath, his right hand shooting up. Was he going to get angry? Unexpectedly, he gave me a deep look, then lowered his raised hand back to the steering wheel. The corners of his mouth still curved upwards. I'll drive first. You can continue hitting me at the next red light. Despite saying this, for every subsequent intersection we approached, I could feel him unconsciously sitting up straighter, then breathing a sigh of relief when he saw it was a green light. Looks like you're still afraid of pain. Fear of pain is a physiological response, heartache is a psychological one. He turned his head to look at me, his gaze serious. Trisha, the you I know is full of vitality. He's not worth losing your smile over. When we arrived at the dormitory building, he opened the car door for me as usual, giving me the full VIP treatment. I blocked Gilbert Chadwick's contact information, but added Zechariah Sheffield on WhatsApp. He was quite chatty and would often suddenly appear by my side, while my responses to him were sparse. They say the best way to get over a breakup is to start a new relationship. But I felt it wasn't fair to the next person to begin something new before I had fully processed all those negative emotions. If that's the case, it's better not to give someone false hope. Gilbert visibly lost weight. He tried every way to corner me, but I never gave him a pleasant look. Proud and self-important as he was, he didn't lower himself to beg desperately in public. After winter set in, I caught a cold during the first heavy snowfall and took a sick day, cocooning in my dormitory. Around 10 a.m., there was a knock on my door. I groggily opened it to find Gilbert standing outside. It had been nearly 2 weeks since I'd last seen him. He looked even thinner, with dense stubble on his chin and his fringe almost covering his eyes, giving him a very dejected appearance. Noticing my gaze, his dull eyes lit up, and his smile turned ingratiating. "Trisha, I heard you've caught a cold. I came to check on you. It's freezing out here, shall we go inside to talk?" On this frigid day, his shoulders were covered in snow, yet his forehead glistened with sweat. I had no idea how he'd managed to convince the dorm manager to let him in. "You haven't had breakfast yet, have you? I've brought you some chicken soup, your favorite. It's still hot." As he attempted to enter the room, I blocked the doorway with my arm and spoke coldly, "Gilbert, I've told you many times, we're over." Perhaps I'd always been too meek, which made him think he always had a chance to win me back. The smile froze on Gilbert's face, his raised eyebrows drooping as his eyes darkened. "I'm sorry about the Bronte incident. I was out of my mind then. Trisha, you're the only one I love. I've cut all ties with her completely. I've only recently found out that you used to secretly top up my meal card, and that the various sponsorships for the student union were only possible because of your intervention." He pressed his lips together in anguish. "I'm sorry I realized it too late." I let out a derisive laugh. "Yes, all that was done quietly to protect your fragile ego. I was such a fool back then." Gilbert's body shook violently as he reached out to touch my face. "Trisha, please don't be angry. Forgive me this once. I promise it will never happen again." Even now, he still thought I was just throwing a tantrum. I stepped back, avoiding his touch. "Gilbert, when couples break up, it means that from now on, we are separate, unrelated individuals. I don't blame you for your emotional infidelity, but please stop pestering me. Don't make me regret ever loving you." Outside, the sky was gloomy. The corridor was dim, and Gilbert stood in the shadow cast by the light from my room, his eyes bloodshot, his face as pale as a ghost. He slowly set down the chicken soup, his Adam's apple bobbing heavily. "You're still upset. I'll come back when you've calmed down. Gilbert, I like spicy food, not chicken soup. I only pretended to like it before to accommodate your taste. I was willing to change my preferences for love, but I couldn't give up my dignity and pride for it. And as you said, we're indeed not compatible. Perhaps you and Bronte are truly kindred spirits." Gilbert left. I watched him from the window. His steps were exceptionally slow, and though the falling snow was light, it seemed to weigh heavily on his shoulders, bending his spine. The snow was falling more heavily, eventually burying his silhouette completely. I turned to go back to bed when a buzzing sound caught my attention. It was a drone, hovering outside my window with a small banner attached, "For the goddess's eyes only." This had Zechariah Sheffield written all over it. The drone remained stationary, its incessant buzzing quite irritating. I had no choice but to reach out and retrieve the item. As soon as I did, it rotated to reveal another banner, "Good girl. Now close the window to keep the big bad wolf out." You're probably the biggest wolf of all, I thought. Zechariah had sent a steaming hot shepherd's pie. My eyes instantly welled up. I love shepherd's pie, but it's hard to find in this distant city. I had no idea where he'd managed to get it from. After eating and taking my medicine, I quickly fell asleep again. I dreamt of the time I was with Gilbert Chadwick. I had once loved wholeheartedly, and even though I was let down, I don't regret it. Keep moving forward, Trisha. Your path will only get wider. Zechariah sent me food every day, and I simply couldn't resist the temptation of the shepherd's pie. I accepted it each time. After I recovered, he asked me to treat him to a meal. It was only fair. After dinner, I went to the loo and paid the bill on my way back. When I returned, a couple at the next table was arguing. The girl was crying and questioning, "Just because my parents said a few words to you, you want to end our 3-year relationship?" The man stood up, visibly irritated. "Yes, I'm not good enough for you. Your family has a house and a car, and I'm just a poor boy from the countryside. You're a rich young lady, so please stop clinging to me." The girl was furious. She picked up a cup of scalding hot English breakfast tea from the table and threw it at the man's face. The man dodged it instantly. The tea came flying towards my face instead. My heart leapt into my throat. If it hit me, my face would be in a terrible state. The change happened so suddenly, I didn't even have time to dodge. At that moment, a dark shadow flashed before my eyes. Zachariah Sheffield, who had been watching the scene with great interest, suddenly moved with incredible speed and stood in front of me. The hot tea scalded his neck, leaving a large red patch. He hissed, drawing in a sharp breath. The girl was frightened, and so was I. Zachariah smiled at me, his eyes crinkling, then pushed the other cup of English breakfast tea towards the girl. Go on, aim properly this time. Splash it right in that scoundrel's face. After a moment of shock, the girl grabbed the cad by his collar and shoved the cup of tea directly into his face, pouring it over him. As we left the coffee shop, Zachariah's neck was still red. Don't worry, I've got thick skin. He stopped and met my concerned and guilty gaze with a smile. I'm happy to take the hit for you. Being able to protect you gives me immense satisfaction. As my goddess, you should be thinking, this devoted admirer can protect me, it's his honor. Could this bloke be any more mental? He had spare clothes in his car. As he changed, I turned my head to look outside. He deliberately poked my back with his finger. Turn around and have a look. My physique is 1 in a million, you'll regret not seeing it. It's free, aren't you going to look? He teased. I gritted my teeth. Shut up, or I'll throw another cup at you. It's not like I haven't seen it before. He used to be on the school basketball team with Gilbert Chadwick. That time there was a match, I went to cheer for Gilbert. In the last few seconds, Zachariah scored a three-pointer, turning defeat into victory. He was so excited and cocky that he took off his shirt and threw it into the stands. It ended up landing on my head, and the smell of sweat nearly suffocated me. However, his six-pack abs caused quite a stir, eliciting screams from the crowd. Now, the top 3 buttons of his shirt were undone, revealing a tanned and muscular chest. It was like a mysterious cave, tempting one to reach out and explore further. My face slightly flushed, I turned my head away. Put your shirt on properly. He clicked his tongue twice and suddenly leaned in close. Too close, almost shoving his pecs in my face, forcing me to admire them. I pressed myself tightly against the back of the seat, instinctively holding my breath. I heard him chuckle softly. Trisha, you can openly lust after my body, no need to be shy. Can I? Is he thinking of kissing me? No way. I raised my voice. If you do that, I'm getting out of the car. His laughter grew louder. We were so close that I could feel the vibrations from his chest against my body. I could clearly see his exceptionally well-defined nose and thick eyelashes. His warm breath gently caressed my earlobe. It felt like pink waves washing over me. The atmosphere in the car was strange. I could barely breathe. He spoke with disappointment. I just want you to help me apply some ointment. Is that not okay? Oh, so that's what he meant. I squeezed out the white ointment, warmed it in my palm, and then gently pressed it onto his neck, massaging it in slowly. I heard him inhale sharply, his earlobes and face flushing red. I asked, "Does it hurt?" "Not at all," he replied. "If it hurts, I'll be gentler." His face reddened even more as he looked at me with those captivating eyes. Pain bestowed by a goddess is both agony and ecstasy. I had taken it too seriously. This man never said anything sensible. I rubbed the spot firmly, making him hiss in pain. After applying the medicine, I accidentally glanced at his chest. I wasn't sure if it was my imagination, but even his pecs seemed to have a rosy tint. Wasn't this ointment supposed to have a cooling and pain-relieving effect? Although the car's heater was on, he must be cold wearing just a shirt. "Put your coat on," I said. He shifted slightly. I'm not cold. But his chest was making me feel a bit dizzy. I reached for his coat draped over his abdomen. The goddess commands you to put it on. He looked panicked and tried to protect it, but he was too late. I immediately noticed the obvious change in a certain area. He sheepishly rubbed his nose and pulled the coat back, covering himself properly. I'm really not cold. Let's head back. I was the one who felt awkward now. I nervously fiddled with the strap of my bag and turned to look out the window. Just then, he leaned over and pulled the seatbelt across me, fastening it. His amber eyes locked onto mine. Seatbelt fastened. From now on, I'll be responsible for the goddess's safety. Seemingly trying to ease the earlier awkwardness, he started talking as he drove. Trisha, if I got disfigured while trying to protect you from boiling water, would I win the title of year's best simp? I rolled my eyes at him. More like year's biggest idiot. Unfazed, his eyes still sparkled. Whatever, as long as I'm your dog. If I'm your dog, does that mean I get to go home with you? In that moment, I genuinely considered buying a leash to tie up this fool. That night, after my shower, I received a WhatsApp message from Bronte's alternate account. It was a photo of Gilbert lying on a hotel bed, with the caption, "Trisha, Gil's drunk and keeps calling your name. Come and check on him?" I wiped my dripping hair and replied, "Sure, send me the location." She didn't respond after that. I knew she was just putting on an act. If she really wanted me to come over, she would have sent me the hotel information and room number directly. She was merely waiting for me to refuse, so she could show the message to Gilbert. Of course, there was probably also an element of showing off in there. I might not love Gilbert anymore, but I'm not generous enough to wish them happiness either. However, since they were both already at the hotel, alone together, and Gilbert had had a few drinks, what was meant to happen tonight would probably happen. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt like I was going to be sick. It's strange, but that night I slept straight through until dawn. That weight that had been pressing on my chest seemed to have suddenly lifted. I knew that this time, I had truly and completely let go. Early the next morning, I got up to go to class and found Gilbert crouching outside the dormitory door. I almost didn't recognize him. His face was covered in stubble, his coat hung loose and wrinkled on his body, and the heavy dark circles under his eyes made it look like he hadn't slept for months. "I saw Zechariah hugging you last night. Are you two together now?" I remained outwardly calm, but inwardly I understood. No wonder Zechariah suddenly said he wanted me to hug him yesterday, to comfort his injured body and soul. He probably knew Gilbert was watching and was deliberately trying to provoke him. "Trisha, maybe you were right. Bronte and I are from the same world. Yesterday, I had some drinks and let Bronte take me to the hotel, but I still couldn't do it." He clutched his head in anguish. "All I could think about was you. It doesn't work with anyone but you." In reality, I didn't know if it would work with me in front of him either. We had never crossed that final line before. I calmly looked at the grieving man before me and said coldly, "If you're ill, go to the hospital. I'm not a doctor. This is all karma now." Gilbert was well known at the university, and news about him spread quickly. I heard my roommate vividly describing how Gilbert had fallen ill and taken a week off, and how Bronte had rushed to the boys' dormitory to pester him, only to be thrown out by Gilbert himself. But none of this had anything to do with me anymore. I remained emotionally detached, treating it as mere gossip. That night, around 10, Zechariah's roommate called me, saying he was in trouble and asking me to come quickly. My heart sank. Without time to tidy up, I threw on a coat over my pajama bottoms and rushed out the door. My flatmate hadn't been clear, and all the way there I was filled with anxiety. My steps got faster and faster, and I even tripped at the university gates. When I arrived, I discovered it was just a gathering at their flat. Zechariah Sheffield had accidentally drunk too much. He was now clinging to a large pillar outside the coffee shop, refusing to leave. "I've managed to get the others back, but he won't budge," my flatmate said, then turned to me. "Let him stay there for now." "Trisha, are you and Gilbert really over?" "Yes," I replied. My flatmate sighed in relief. "That's good. You should spend more time with Zach. He may seem careless on the surface, but he's always kept you in his heart. He's had plenty of girls after him, but every time someone confesses, he spends half an hour talking about you. Every girl who's fancied him knows he has an unrequited love. Who could put up with that?" I pressed my lips together, feeling conflicted. I regretted what I'd said at that mixer. When Gilbert was running for student union president, Zach was also a candidate. Gilbert only won by 1 vote, Zex. He probably saw you campaigning for Gilbert every day and didn't want you to be upset if you lost. That time you fainted at the university gates, it was Zach who carried you all the way to the hospital. Gilbert knows about this too, but he never told you, did he? Running into him the day you broke up wasn't a coincidence. He'd been driving around the pub all evening. That box of sweets, he'd asked someone to bring them from abroad ages ago. He was afraid you wouldn't accept them, so he didn't even wrap them properly. The day you got together with Gilbert, Zach got drunk and cried all night. None of us in the flat got any sleep because of him. Early the next morning, he got up and bought breakfast for everyone in the flat. I knew he was doing it to see you in the dining hall. I remembered that the day after Gilbert and I became official, I did indeed run into him in the dining hall. He was carrying a big bag of breakfast, smiling at me casually and naturally. At the time, I thought, he really was just playing around. Otherwise, he should have been at least a little heartbroken that I was with someone else. My flatmate said a lot, making me feel like I'd never really known Zechariah at all. Drunk Zach was as docile as a child. Told to stay put, he clung to the pillar without moving an inch. Looking at his flushed face and slightly unfocused eyes, I felt both exasperated and amused. "Why did you drink so much?" "I'm unhappy," he said, sounding utterly miserable. "I was rejected by the girl I love. My heart is breaking." My heart suddenly tightened. Last night, I'd hugged him as he wanted, and he'd pushed his luck, saying, "Trisha, you don't hate me anymore, right? Why don't we give it a try? I'll be good to you." But I'd refused. He'd stiffened for a moment, but quickly regained his smile. Being rejected by the girl you love is a rite of passage for every lovesick fool. "Don't feel bad, Trisha. Girls should learn to say no." He'd seemed so relaxed at the time, I thought he wasn't affected at all. I reached out to take his hand. "Come on, I'll take you back." "I'm not going. I'm waiting for the girl I love." I blushed slightly. "I am the girl you love." He raised his misty eyes and stared at me for a moment. "Liar. The girl I love has long hair." After the breakup, I'd cut my hair short to show I was starting anew. I was silent for a few seconds, then asked softly, "If she never comes, will you just keep waiting?" "Yes." "How long are you prepared to wait?" His eyes were downcast, a faint mist gathering on his lashes, the corners of his mouth turned upward in a blissful curve. "I'll wait a lifetime if I have to," Zechariah Sheffield said softly. But I couldn't sort out my own feelings. I couldn't be with him just because I was moved, that would be a desecration of his deep affection. However, I could try to spend more time with him. In the past, when I was with Gilbert Chadwick, planning where to go and how to arrange our trips was mostly my responsibility. But being with Zechariah was different. He was full of energy and had many novel ideas. I just needed to enjoy myself, and he would take care of all the other details. It was truly much more relaxing this way. Plus, he had a car, so we didn't have to squeeze onto the tube or buses. Going out was less exhausting. After our final exams, he asked me not to rush home. He wanted to drive me on a holiday. To show he had no ulterior motives, he even booked 2 separate rooms in advance. The morning sunlight was brilliant, falling into his eyes, making his amber irises sparkle. As we stopped at a red light, Zechariah reached out and ruffled my hair. In those amber pools, I saw myself, my brows furrowed but my eyes smiling. The adoration in Zechariah's gaze seemed to overflow as he said, "Trisha, after the Christmas holiday, we could." He didn't finish his sentence before a thunderous bang interrupted him. A massive fireball erupted to our left front, followed by billowing smoke and a deafening roar. Explosion after explosion rang out, and our vision was obscured by thick smoke and flames. I was already dizzy from the shock wave, and when the car violently shook, my head spun, and my vision darkened. Zechariah was in an even worse state. His forehead was bleeding, the car door was dented and couldn't be opened from the inside. But running outside might not be safer at this point. In the last moment before I lost consciousness, I vaguely saw him lean over, pressing his hands tightly over my ears. Amidst the chaos, I caught Zechariah's voice, "Save her first. We'll get to her soon. Your injuries are more severe." "I'm fine," Save her first. His voice broke, trembling badly. She's not moving. She hasn't had an accident, has she? The rescue worker said something, probably words of comfort, but I couldn't make it out. I only heard someone say at the end, "Don't worry, given your distance from the explosion site, there shouldn't be any life-threatening danger. We'll do our best to treat your wife." In my haze, I heard Zechariah urgently reply, "She's not my wife, but she's the only one I love. You must save her." I wanted to speak, to tell them I was all right, to save that fool Zechariah first, but my throat couldn't produce any sound. I wanted to open my eyes, to see how badly he was hurt, but my eyelids refused to lift. When I next awoke, I was in the hospital. As soon as I opened my eyes, I met Zechariah's intense gaze. His left hand was in a cast, his face wrapped in bandages. He looked haggard, with sunken eyes and stubble on his chin. Usually, he always tried to look cool and would never appear before me in such a state. Seeing me awake, his dull eyes lit up. I thought he was going to say something deeply moving, but instead, he held up 3 fingers and asked, "Trisha, tell me, how many fingers am I holding up?" "2, I coughed softly, then blinked and asked, "Who are you?" Zechariah froze for several seconds, then suddenly exclaimed joyfully, "I'm your fiancé. My name is Zechariah Sheffield. You love me very much, and we've agreed to get married as soon as we graduate." This rascal, trying to trick me while I was confused. Ignoring his own injuries and the foredrip, he struggled to sit up on the bed, opened the bedside drawer, and took out a box. He opened the blue velvet box to reveal a pair of platinum rings inside. "Look, we've already picked out our rings." The small diamonds in the center of the rings reflected a dazzling light, but it couldn't compare to the brilliance in Zechariah's eyes at that moment. The light stung my eyes, making them moist, and my heart felt full. I moved my lips, about to speak, when the hospital room door was pushed open. Gilbert Chadwick rushed in, throwing himself to my bedside. With trembling hands, he reached for my bandaged forehead, his voice hoarse, "Trisha, I'm sorry I'm late." I hadn't seen Gilbert Chadwick in ages, and I could barely recognize the man before me. He had lost so much weight that his appearance had changed dramatically. His eyes were sunken, his cheekbones prominent, and his hair long and disheveled. He fell to his knees beside my hospital bed. "Trisha, I'm so sorry. I was such a fool before, too proud and didn't know how to cherish what I had. On my way here, every second was agony. I was terrified something might happen to you. I was afraid I'd regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't get to tell you how I feel." From the corner of my eye, I could see the light in Zechariah Sheffield's eyes gradually dimming. It was like a roaring fire suddenly doused by a large bucket of ice water. My ears were still ringing. How strange, when I was talking to Zechariah earlier, this buzzing didn't seem to affect me. I slowly stood up, holding onto the bed for support. Gilbert was overjoyed and reached out to help me. "Trisha, you should lie down and rest." I brushed him off and turned to Zechariah with a smile, offering my hand. "What are you waiting for? Put the ring on your goddess's finger." Zechariah was stunned. It took him about 5 seconds to react, then joy and passion ignited in his eyes like a wildfire. He took out the ring and tried to slip it onto my finger. He was so excited that his hands were shaking, and it took him several attempts to succeed. "Hold still." I gripped his hand, helping him guide the ring into place. It fit perfectly, as if custom-made. Zechariah's eyes were red-rimmed, his throat choked with emotion, unable to speak. Instead, it was I who smiled, tilting my head up to capture his lips. "You've come 99 steps of the way, let me take this last step."